Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And like I just mentioned, today what we're going to be talking to you about is why you should never retire.
Cameron, that's a pretty bold statement you just threw down there.
It is. But that's my belief, right? This is how I'm approaching retirement. And today, I think you have a similar approach, and that's what we're going to share with the listeners.
Yeah, for this time, I do totally agree with you.
Yes.
And we're going to explain our position, and hopefully you can see why we believe you should never retire.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast, where we teach clients how to build wealth and create passive income without the risk of Wall Street.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this idea of retirement and where it originally came from. Anthony, I did a little bit of research.
Oh, nice.
I know. I prepped for a podcast, believe it or not. This idea of retirement came about in 1883 by a German chancellor. His name was Otto von Bismarck. And the issue that they had there was that they had the older segment of the population was not leaving the workforce. And so what he did is he actually came in and implemented the fact that, hey, you guys need to retire if you're over the age of 65. And then he also came in and kind of implemented a pension plan or some sort of social support. So that's where this whole idea came from. Prior to that, man, Anthony, if you were alive, you were working.
Well, yeah, 1883, I just watched that series on Paramount Plus.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
And actually, that to me is helping put like the date, like to where the time period on what is going on during that time period. And to me, if you watch the show, it's a good show. It's very hard to watch. I mean, their lives were very difficult and hard. I can't imagine people living to 65. And if so, very few.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And let's go a little farther back. What I always think is interesting, so kind of what you're saying, Cameron, before 1883, there really wasn't much retirement.
No, there was none, yeah.
And one point I find very interesting, or tell people, how many times do you think the word retirement is in the Bible?
Ooh, good question. I know the answer, but I won't spoil it.
Most people might say, give me 5 or give a number. There is a number, but the number is 0. Right? It's not used in the Bible. And in fact, if you recall a few, it's too long, about a year ago, we had Rabbi Lappin on the podcast, and he talked about it, and he shared, not only is it not in the Bible, but it wasn't even part of the Hebrew language. Right? And if you look at biblically, Hebrew was the language created by God. And, some things were invented that weren't around during the Bible, like a cell phone or an airplane. So they had to create a word for that. And they had to create a word for retirement as well. And to me, I think it's very interesting that I don't think we were meant to retire. And what you're talking about here with this dude in 1883, the reason why he did it wasn't because that's what's good for the people. Hey, you worked hard, you're 65, now let's just relax. It was more of an economic for society as a whole. There was too many workers. So, but what is interesting also, that 65, that's still kind of relevant today, where people think they should retire when they're 65. And the life expectancy is much greater now than it was in that difficult time of 1883.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. Anthony, you're on a roll.
I know.
So let's keep it going.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So tell us, why do you think people want to retire? Why is that a goal?
I think it's a goal for I'd say 2 reasons.
Well, hang on. I'm sorry. Let's define retirement here real quick.
Okay.
Right. What is retirement, right? What's kind of the working understanding of retirement for this podcast here?
Well, I would say if you look it up in the dictionary, the word retirement says to place out of service.
Agreed. Yep.
Right? That doesn't sound appealing to me.
Not at all. No.
Right? But now what we've used that term for is more people view retirement of no longer working and drawing down on their assets to provide income.
Yeah.
And let's not even talk about Social Security.
Yeah. No.
Right?
No, let's keep it focused. All right, perfect. So thanks for that definition. Now, why do people want to retire, right? What's the feedback that you get?
I think the number one reason is people don't like what they do.
Oh, I was going to say that. I totally agree with you.
What, do you think I was going to do something different?
No,
Of course I'm going to have the number one answer, right?
Yeah.
Right. They're in a position where, look, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working since I was, 18 or 16, and everybody says I should meet this golden age. So
Yeah.
I don't want to work anymore. Right. You want anything to add on that?
No. Well, yeah. I agree with you. Right. I think that today people start careers or start occupations and they find themselves not really doing what they originally thought it was going to be or having something else. So they start out in a career and a job and they get into this cubicle and they're like, well, this isn't fun. This is not what I imagined. We just interviewed Allie Boone and she had a great experience of being like an aeronautical engineer, and she had all this fun about flight and flying and training and doing all this stuff. And then she actually steps into her occupation and she sits down at a cubicle, and day one she's like, this sucks. Like, this is not what I wanted. Right. And so I think that a lot of times people step into that role, they get kind of trapped in that scenario, and, they're looking for a way out.
And what I will add to what they're looking at is, what somebody told me is, hey, when you retire, every day is Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't love Saturday? Right? Saturday's a great day. I mean, you didn't work, you don't have to work the next day, and they want to be on a permanent vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I can see where that has some appeal. I mean, I enjoy vacations.
Yeah. So let's talk about what that looks like, what retirement looks like, maybe some of the financial impacts or some of the concerns that people are going through that are retired right now, right? There's a lot of things that happen in the markets today that are impacting those that are retired.
So we're doing this podcast in June of 2022.
Yeah.
And stock market is tanking, crypto's tanking, a lot of asset classes are tanking.
Inflation's through the roof.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How'd you forget that
inflation. Yeah. I tell you, to me, my heart goes out to somebody who's in retirement right now, particularly if maybe they did it last year in 2021, right? Because typically most people have their retirement assets tied up in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh man, this thing, my net worth just blew up. I got plenty of money. But now what they're seeing is their money could have lost 25% in this short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but also with inflation, things are costing more.
Yeah.
Right. And what I've found with doing our research with retirement, that our mindset starts to change.
Yeah. Agree.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Is that it's one thing that when we're working, we could always save a little bit more, spend a little less, or work longer, right?
Yeah.
We got a lot of options when things don't turn out the way, maybe with inflation or a loss of assets.
Yeah, there's another paycheck coming, right?
Yeah. But when you're in retirement, like it's totally different,
Mm-hmm.
right? The money you have, like that's it. So what I found is people they change their mindset, and we talk a lot about having abundant mindset.
You and I talked about this today earlier,
Yeah.
right? Is we had a client that just came in and they're making decisions, right, based upon or coming from a scarcity mindset. Is hey, listen, there's an inheritance, there's a windfall, and this is everything that they've got. And it's really difficult to kind of work through. We can show them all day long that, hey, this option is a better option for you based upon the numbers, but there's some of the intangibles, there's the emotional piece to it that can be really difficult to overcome, right?
Right. And you'd mentioned that scarcity mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? That we could be scared to spend money.
Yeah.
Because this is all we got and we don't want to spend it because there might not be any more. And that just... And particularly with inflation, because now maybe you're on a fixed income, but when your expenses go up, that's going to hurt financially.
Yeah.
Right? And then if we're not willing or scared to spend money because we're hoarding it, retirement is not going to look like we thought it was going to look. Maybe it's a Saturday, but you're not going out on a Saturday.
Yeah.
You're just going to stay home, and that's not the life that I think we were meant to live.
I totally agree with you. When people enter retirement, and I'm referring to kind of the traditional phase of retirement. You accumulate all this stuff. You retire at 65. You've been working your whole life. You kind of shut it off, and you start coasting, right? You start waking up. Every day's a Saturday, and you're like, man, what am I doing? Like, it's fun for a while, right? I always think about vacation. I don't know what retirement's like, because I go on vacation, and after the third day, I'm like, man, I need to get back to my routine. I can't imagine being in retirement and just having all of this time with nothing to do. I couldn't imagine it. I'd be losing my purpose, and I'd be looking for something. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people, is they retire, they've got all this time, and they don't really know what to do. And guess what I found out that they do, Anthony?
What do?
They worry. Right? I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to ever sit down or talk to maybe your parents, or you guys are approaching retirement, but as you get closer and closer to that, or once you're in that phase, man, Anthony was talking about scarcity mindset, but really what it comes down to is there's worry, there's concern, and it almost becomes an obsession when people are under that traditional model of looking at their accounts, what their balances are today, what the market do, right? And your worry and your concern is just through the roof, and that's not a good place to be.
No.
Right? And so once you enter into that phase, right, you've got all these health issues that can happen. I'm sure that you guys probably know somebody out there that has worked every day their entire life, and unfortunately they go and they retire, and then almost immediately they have some sort of health ailment and they get sick and maybe pass away. That happens quite often, right? And unfortunately, we want to try to avoid that, right? And so the point of this is not to scare anybody and say that that's what's going to happen, but that can happen, and that's a lot of times, right? It's the mental piece of it that comes along with retirement and kind of coasting. So, Anthony, let's shift gears.
Well, yeah, I think what you're saying is that does happen, but we want to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, well said.
Right, and we can be proactive now, so you're going to be you're going to have a more fulfillment of retirement.
Yeah. Anthony, let's shift gears. Let's talk about what are some things that people can do now today to shift, right, from this idea of retirement and just kind of going out of service. And what can they do now? How should we approach retirement?
We deal a lot or follow a lot of what Robert Kiyosaki teaches, right? And what he teaches is getting financial freedom.
Yeah. And
he defines that by passive income is more than your monthly expenses. And if you can do that, sometime, no matter how long it's going to take you, that's when you have the ability, if you wanted to, retire. But what we found is people that achieve that financial freedom, that's enjoying. Like, it's enjoying finding deals or kind of overseeing your investment. So you're not working for somebody else. You're working for yourself, and you're growing your assets. So what we recommend people do is we want to start building that passive income now. We don't need to wait till we're in our 60s to build it. Let's do that now, so we can be in a position where we can maybe not retire, but maybe what you call it semi-retirement, or really work. Well, we like to say, work because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah. I'm going to throw this out there. Let's call it financial independence.
Okay.
Right? So instead of retirement, I think your focus should be on financial independence. And along the way, what we should be doing is looking at opportunities to create that passive income, right? And really the difference between the two strategies, the traditional model and kind of what we're proposing, is the amount of control that you have over your ability to produce, right? I've sat down with clients and said, hey, listen, here's what it looks like, right? Here's where you guys are now, and there's a ton of worry, there's a ton of concern because their retirement is out of their control, right? We implement some of the strategies that we talk about, and now they're in control. They're calculating, they're creating that income that they want and that they need. And man, just being able to do that, right? The worry goes away, they get excited about it, and they want to continue to produce. And so, right, our approach is let's look at financial independence as opposed to retirement.
Love it.
Yeah. Anthony, One of the things that I love about our approach is we don't have to wait until we're 60 years old to create or to build this income. And so when people are looking for these opportunities, man, we can start now. We can start today. And I think that's one of the things that's so appealing by implementing the infinite banking concept is you have control of your cash and you can start to create that income now. You don't have to wait.
Exactly. No, exactly right.
Anthony, kind of in closing, you got anything else to share here as we wrap up?
You know what? I'm gonna get a little deep here.
Oh, okay. About
now,
time.
As we're working and as we age, we're accumulating a lot of wisdom and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to take ourselves out of service, aka retirement, I feel we're doing a service to others.
Did you say disservice?
Disservice.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether we can feed into other people, whether it's being a consultant, right, or maybe it's volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that opportunity where we can take that knowledge and wisdom that you've used and be able to share it to others. And not only will that help others, but that's also helping ourselves. I mean, how good does it feel when we help others, right? Like you went and helped build houses in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how good did that feel?
It felt amazing. It felt amazing to be able to provide something to somebody that didn't really have much of anything.
And I would imagine the reason why you're not doing that every week is because you don't have the time, right?
True.
But maybe when we're in this semi-retirement or working less, we can take that time that we were working. Now we can change that to serving.
Well said, Anthony.
Thanks.
I'll wrap it up with this analogy, and I'm going to piggyback off what you just said. Is that I think
what else is new?
I think what you're saying is that, right, is having a vision that's greater than retirement. And the analogy that came to my mind is I've heard Rabbi Lappin speak several times. We've interviewed him on the podcast, but he's got an analogy. I think it's in one of his books. He compares retirement to a golf swing. And what he says is that a lot of times people will focus on the golf ball, and that represents retirement. If your golf swing is predicated around just hitting that golf ball and it stops there, you have no idea where that ball is going to go afterwards. The person that comes to my mind is, I love you, Dad, but man, I'll tell you what, my dad will swing and he'll hit a golf ball. Number one, his eyes are closed.
Okay. And
number two, as soon as he hits it, I love you, Dad, but he'll ask 14 times, where'd it go? And I'm like, well, if you'd open your eyes at number two, if you'd swing in balance, right, you might have an idea of finding it. And so that's what comes to mind. And so the analogy would be this, is have the end in mind. And if you're swinging a golf club, your finish, what you should be focused on is having hands high at the end, your weight on your left foot, and kind of a slight spine tilt. And if you can do that, man, you're going to find that golf ball. Right? And I think that's kind of the analogy of what we're talking about is, hey, we need to change our focus from retirement, which is that golf ball, open up our vision to not only just retirement, but having a greater amount of impact as we possibly can from retirement and beyond. So I hope that was helpful to everybody today. But hopefully today you guys will rethink the idea of retirement.
And let me just end with this, that you might be sitting there, oh, cool, that sounds great, but how do I create passive income? You would be amazed of how many ways there are to create passive income.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen to this podcast is a great way to start. And if you know, as we've talked about long-term rentals, short-term rentals, flipping land, ATM machines, franchises, Amazon store, it can be overwhelming. And if you need some help and want to learn how you can incorporate this, get on a discovery call with us. 15, 30 minutes. We're kind of see what your goals are to see how and if we can help you. Let me just end on this one more note. Just to reiterate for your dad listening, Cameron does love you, even though he ratted you out there. Now go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. Also, check out our website, infinitewealthconsultants.com, to find our podcast along with other additional resources.